Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Diesel Queen podcast. Today I have a guest in here that I've known for a few years. We both kind of work under diesel laptops in some way, shape, or form. His name is Scott, and today we're going to be talking about technician training because that is his field of expertise. So, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of go over what you do for them?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, my name's Scott, and I'm the director of diesel training. So, kind of a quick backstory on me. I was a dealer level technician for roughly 15 years, and I started out pretty much like a lot of people do. Started out mopping floors, cleaning parts, assisting other techs, and then just kind of started working into PMs, oil changes, that kind of stuff. Worked into wheel ends, and then rear ends, transmission overhauls, and then engine overhauls. And then sometime around 2007 or so, when emissions started picking up, might have been a little after that initial rush of emissions, but the shop I worked at, they had three of us that they decided they wanted to be diagnostic techs. And so basically, the truck would come in and it would have a complaint, and me and one of the other two guys, one of the three of us, would troubleshoot that vehicle. And then we would create a warranty report or maybe a quote, and then we would send that vehicle to the main shop, and they would replace the parts on it. And so basically, the last decade of my career was pretty much troubleshooting for the majority. Kind of, I don't know, felt like I kind of took that road about as far as I could go, and got an opportunity to come to Diesel Laptops and start a training program with another gentleman named Dustin. And so we started this training program, and I was the primary trainer for about 4 years. And then we opened up Arlington and Chicago, where we hired our guys there, Mike Albrock and Juan. And basically, once that took place, sometime around 2022, I got promoted into the training manager. And then in 2024, I believe, I got promoted to director of training. So I know that's a lot of information, but just kind of trying to give you a little bit of my past, where I came from, what I specialized in, and how I got here today. Hopefully that was
Yeah,
helpful
that's
enough for
good.
you.
So
Yeah.
for a lot of people, for the people that are listening, part of the reason I love Diesel laptops and all of their other companies, I understand that Diesel training is like branching off from Diesel laptops a little bit, but they Tyler loves to hire people that were actually in the industry. He loves
Yes.
to hire people that were actually mechanics, actually worked on things, actually shop owners, actually part of the industry. He goes into he picks people specifically out of the industry, which is really cool. Which is why,
Yeah.
not to go on a little sales rant here that's not needed, but it's why he's so successful in what he does, and it's why his products are for the most part more enjoyable to use according to most of the people that I've heard comment on it and myself compared to the competitions. He doesn't just
Sure.
pick out like some tech guru that graduated college. That's not, just graduated college has no idea what the diesel industry is. I mean, he might have some people like that in there, but for the most
Sure.
part, a lot of the people that he uses in his industry are from the industry, including himself, right?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of cool.
That's an important piece, right? Because if you being a previous tech yourself, and obviously you still do a lot of technical stuff, but
Kind of.
it's a certain culture, right? The technician trade, especially, I kind of break technician trade down into like micro buckets, I guess. Like, you've got your automotive group, you've got your heavy equipment group, you've got your semi group, your
Yep.
your transportation industry group, I guess. And the one thing that everybody has in common across any of those groups is they work with their hands, they work in the heat, they work in the cold, they work hard hours, and it can be a very tough industry. It's a good industry, it
Mhm.
creates a good life,
Oh
but
yeah.
I say all that to say, who knows more about being in the trenches of that kind of stuff than the people who do it. And I think it's
Yep.
really important that if you're that type of company like we are, it's paramount that you have people that are part of that culture, part of that lifestyle, that understand. Because I mean, if you just take a standard salesperson and you try to get them to sell a technician something,
Yeah, the technician's gonna
you
be
know
like, nah, the
exactly,
fuck out of
right.
here.
Exactly, you got to understand what they need, you got to understand what challenges they face every single day. And I think it's important. So I think Tyler's done a really good job of having a blend of seasoned veterans. But
Hmm.
also, like you mentioned, we have a lot of people that have come from college, right? Because we have a lot of stuff that we do here that requires, a lot of college education, writing of like coding for engineering, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. I mean, I can't do that, so
Yeah, me neither.
but he does do a great job of making sure we have people from the industry that have lived that for a long amount of time to be part of this company to make sure we're moving in the right direction. So hats off to Tyler, man. He's killer.
Yeah. He's For those of you that don't know, Tyler started this in his fucking garage
Sure did.
after he dropped out of high school, or during the time he dropped out of college. So he
Yeah,
took
I think it was
something that
college.
he started in his freaking garage that everybody thought he was fucking crazy for, and now it's I think it's like the biggest aftermarket diesel diagnostics company. They for as far as aftermarket, they're like the leaders in that. So
I
yeah,
would I would I would hedge my bet on that. I don't know if it's 100% fact or not, but I'd say if we're not in the top, we got to be. If we're not the top, we've got to be in the top 2 or 3 for sure.
yeah,
You know.
yep.
Yeah, Tyler's a pioneer, man.
For sure. He's
Yeah.
inspirational on things like that. Another part of his company that he started branching off from diesel laptops is the diesel training, which is what
Yeah.
you work for. And Tyler did a really good job with that because he saw the need for not only the technology and the softwares that people and technicians need, but he also saw that, like, okay, if you don't work for a dealership or an OEM manufacturer, you're not getting the same level of training that the OEM people are getting, right? With
Sure.
the breakdowns of diagnostics and the breakdowns of theory of operations and the bug test. Everybody that's worked at OEM understands bug tests. We've all
Yep.
done it like a million
Sure.
times through our training certifications, but people that just work at normal shops don't have that. They don't have the like bug testing to test their skills. And the OEM, like, they probably have, like, it's one thing to read a theory of operation, it's a whole nother thing to actually understand what that means. And anybody that's been to any type of training class knows that the first step to diagnostics is to understand the system and know the system. It's the very first fucking
Preach it.
step.
That's
So
right.
what
Absolutely.
Tyler has done is created a training system for technicians. Now, I don't know who all works at the locations that you are at, but I've met Michael, who's in Chicago, and he is one of the smartest people I've met when it comes to electronic diagnostics.
He's sharp. There's no doubt
He's
about
pretty
it. I think a
sharp.
lot of Michael. Yeah.
I really have been trying to get him onto like a podcast too,
Sure.
but he's
Yeah.
he's a technician. He's like, meh, right? I mean, he'll do it for me, but he's busy because he's training. He goes all over the place, but
He does. He'll be here. So I'm in Columbia. He'll be here next Wednesday. He's flying out to me. We got a new project we're working on, and so I'll be spending about a week and a half with him next week. But yeah, very smart guy, very sharp. I think a lot of Mike. He's a good dude, and
mhm.
yeah, keep carrying on, man. I'm not trying to hijack it. I get sideways here, so keep on
No,
cooking.
it's good.
Yeah,
Michael, I want to get him in here, but like, I mean, that's part of he's part of the diesel training. And he's
he's
another
a big part.
example of what, Tyler went somewhere. I don't even know where he found Michael, but he found him and he plucked him out of wherever he was because he knew that he was going to be great for this and put him in his training. And
So actually, me and Dustin found him.
oh, really?
A little more Dustin than me, but I basically Dustin hunted him down and then I vetted him. And when we explained who he was and what he was capable of, Tyler was all in. But
Hmm.
yeah, he wasn't as hard to track down as you think. For a guy like Mike, you gotta understand that his electrical ability is very high, right?
Hmm.
And I've got a few trainers that electrical ability is very high. What makes Mike special is Mike is a oscilloscope junkie, all right? And
Oh,
when you start
yeah.
using scopes, you've got a scope is pretty much a useless tool if you don't have the basic principles of electricity really ironed out, right? You got to
Yep.
understand what's happening inside of a circuit. And when you understand that and use a scope, now you're seeing those things in a waveform, in a graphical format in real time. So again, you got to have a strong basic understanding. But then we've got guys like me and Dustin and others that use scopes, right? And Dustin's not with training anymore. I keep plugging him because we worked together forever and we started this together. And I think a lot of him too. But he's actually on the engineering team now, killing it over there. But anyway, we can all use scopes. We're all really good with electricity. But Mike breathes oscilloscopes, right? Like that's the thing that
Hmm.
you've just got to keep in the back of your mind that, if I want to go do something fun, I might go ride a dirt bike, play a guitar, play some video games, something like that. When Mike has free time, Mike wants to get waveforms, right? So when you take a
Yeah.
guy that just absolutely is in love with that concept for fun, you can't really top that. And so finding him was a lot easier than you think because the heavy duty industry has been they've kind of put off using scopes for a long time. Automotive's been using them for a long time. Heavy
Hmm.
duty industry's been kind of shy of it. We're starting to see an uptick in it, but there were very few people in the HD industry that were very good with scopes. And Mike was one of them, and I've actually been told by a very large scope manufacturer in the United States of America that Mike is in the 1% of scope users in the country. In other
Oh, I
words,
believe that.
out of 100 guys, he'd be number one. It's proof. You can see it, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh yeah, he's tried. He's tried before to like show me what he does and like show me the scope thing. And I'm like, so John Deere had a scope kind of thing.
Yep.
It wasn't near as in depth as what he does, but John
Sure.
Deere does make this little like break. They call it a breakout box, little like
Yep.
fucking scope thingy. I fucking hated using that. I would avoid using that like the fucking plague. If I can't like just do the like just tell me what the ohms are supposed to be when I ohm it out. Just tell me what the
Yeah.
fucking voltage is supposed to be at each pin. Just tell
Yeah.
me that shit because I could not just get my head wrapped around that. I just can't. It's fucking hard.
I
But
think you could.
my
Yeah.
electronic diagnostics suffered for it. I mean, I can diagnose shit. Obviously, I did it for like
Sure.
almost 10 years, but am I going to be the top of the shop when it comes to electrical diagnostics? Probably not. Visually trace it out and like, because I'm a visual learner, kind of thing. But yeah, he's tried to show me, and I'm like, bro, you got to speak English. I don't know what the fuck you're talking. I have no fucking idea what you're trying to tell me here, bro.
No,
And
I
I was a
totally get it.
mechanic for 10 years and I don't fucking understand, which is why I want to get him on the podcast with Missy, who is the
Mm,
female version of Mike,
gotcha.
and get them together on a fucking electrical diagnostics fucking thing. But they're both super
Yeah.
busy, so it's really hard to like nail
Gotcha.
down a fucking time, but that'd be
Yeah,
super
sure.
cool. But
Well, to real quick to follow back up on that, the technician and the trainer in me has to say a couple things to some of those comments you made, which is number one, you admitted to yourself that you probably weren't the best electrical tech in your shop. So that's the first step to becoming the best electrical tech in your shop, right? Is
is thinking you
understanding
suck.
where you're at and understanding your limitations. And number two is scopes, they're heavy. They can be, but you're looking at voltage and amperage over time in real time versus a multimeter, which is taking samples. So
Yeah.
the best way I explain that is when you're using a multimeter, imagine you're taking photographs, right? And imagine there's a guy running a 40-yard dash and you're taking a photograph and your camera can only take so many pictures. You might see, the runner like this, and then the next picture they might be like that, and the next picture they might be like that. That's because of the sample rate. So with an oscilloscope, all you're really getting is you're getting those electrical values, you're getting the voltage and amperage over time in a waveform, but you're getting it at a much, much higher sample rate. So it's a scope would be more like a video camera
Yeah.
and a multimeter would be more like a photography camera. They both capture, data, but one's going to capture more data. So again, to high level that the fact that you admitted you probably weren't the best, that's step one to becoming the best. Number two, if you can use a multimeter and you understand what a volt, an amp, and an ohm is and how all three of those interact with one another within a circuit, then you can use a scope at least at its most basic form, which is still very helpful.
Don't
Right.
ask me
So
to do the math on Ohm's law, but I
super easy.
understand how
Yeah.
everything
Nothing to it.
works, but don't ask me to do the math and understand the equation for Ohm's law. But
Well,
I'm
the
much
truth
more
is,
happy in my element when I'm like rebuilding an engine or ripping apart
sure.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
transmissions and shit. That's like, but that's kind of where like Missy kind of told me when she was on here. That's kind of the separation of mechanics and technicians
It
because there's
is.
a difference between a mechanic and a technician, and I fall more under the fucking scope of a mechanic than I do a technician. Can I diagnose? Like I worked for John Deere. We didn't have separate diagnostic people to
Sure.
repair people. So you had to diagnose your own shit. But like I definitely fall under more of the like I don't know if it's because I got the ADD thing or I'm just I don't know, but the repair side of it and being able to follow that is so much easier for me. Like I can do electric diagnostics. Obviously, I've been doing it for 10 years, but I mean, I've spent 4 days on trying to chase an electrical problem down before.
Sure.
It's just I mean, sometimes that happens, but I mean, I'm sure if
It,
I
it,
understood how to use a scope and I actually used it, it would have been beneficial. But
it sure would have. But I mean, and just again, another thing you said that caught my attention was Ohm's law. I mean, I can do Ohm's law with the best of them. I've gotten some pretty high end compliments from engineer level people, and greater on the skill set I have with Ohm's law. But let me tell you the secret to Ohm's law as a technician. The secret is you need to understand more so the principles and the reactions based off of Ohm's law than you need to actually sit down and do the math, right? So basically all Ohm's law tells you is 1 volt can move 1 amp through 1 ohm of resistance, which means 1 equals 1 times 1, which means all
Yeah.
three things are created equal. If one thing changes, something else must change with it. So assuming your voltage remain the same, if your resistance was to increase, then your current must decrease, right? So
Yeah.
that's what Ohm's law is. And the formulas can feel heavy. They don't have to be that heavy. I'm actually going to be doing a DLU series for our Diesel Laptops University, which is our online learning platform for diesel training. I'm actually going to do a short series on Ohm's law for series circuits, series parallel, measuring voltage drop, things like that. But mostly just for the guys like me and Mike who enjoy that kind of thing. It's not something that you as a technician should really focus on and go, if I don't know these formulas, what you really need to know is what happens in a circuit when something
Yeah.
changes, what changed with it, right? So that's the important thing. So
Well, I
you're
get
still
like
good. All good.
anxiety when it comes to that
Sure.
because I had to take when I was working for Deere, the first like 6 months I was there, they really wanted to start sending me into capstones, but I couldn't go because I had the hydraulic one. I had taken the basic hydraulic class, passed it obviously, the in-house training class. But they didn't have an electrical class scheduled for like another 6 months, 7 months, and I needed to get into this capstone within like a few weeks.
Gotcha.
And so that the only option I had was to take the bypass test, which is fucking ridiculously hard, by the way, and has a lot of fucking Ohm's law math in it, by the fucking way. It was horrible. I passed that thing with like an 82. Like I barely passed that. And I felt
Pretty
so
solid.
fucking bad about it because I was like, I'm a perfectionist. I want to get like 90. I want to be like over 95 on fucking everything I do.
Sure. Yeah.
And I did that, and then my fucking boss was like, you're the only person in the history of this fucking company that has ever passed that, right? I'm
Well, there
like,
you go.
well, I feel a little bit better,
Not so bad,
but
is it? Yeah.
oh, that Ohm's law shit, like I guess it like triggers Ohm's law trauma because I'm like,
I get it. It triggers a lot of techs actually.
I wasn't allowed to have my
Because
phone when
yeah,
I did it, so I didn't have a calculator. So I'm like, shit.
it's the math portion, right? That's the normal. That's the thing that we've realized is the differentiator is it's the math. Technicians don't really want to, not all technicians, some do, some love it, but not all
Michael loves
technicians
it.
want to sit down and do math. A lot of times, not all the time, there are very highly educated technicians out there, but there's a lot of guys that didn't go to college that became technicians and they've got great careers, they've made great money, they're successful, but maybe math wasn't something they enjoyed. So I think it's important when you teach Ohm's law, and we brush on it a little bit in electrical one, but we don't go through any of the math, any of the formulas, any of that. We explain what Ohm's law is, and then we show them what that looks like in a circuit response,
Yeah.
using our circuit trainers that we have for use while following along with in-person training. So this will be something we'll be utilizing next year, starting January. But yeah, it's more about the reaction than the math, at least for technicians. And knowing the
Hmm.
math is helpful. If you got to add components to a vehicle, if you need to add a strobe light for a tow truck, like how do you know what size fuse you need? How do you know what size wires do you need? Like there's some basic formulas that can really help you with installing of custom components or add-ons, but it just doesn't have to get as deep as people make it out to be for 99% of the time. Just throwing that out there if anybody else feels the same way about it. I totally understand it.
So, in your opinion, what is the biggest lacking factor in technician training in general?
Well, man, that's a stellar question. So let's put some borders around that. Let me ask you: when you say the biggest lack, do you mean what is the biggest lack of skill in technicians? Do you mean what is the biggest lack of, training options? Like, let's drill into that a little bit.
Well, actually, both, but let's start
Okay.
with the lack of skill set or
Okay.
knowledge. Kind of
All
group
right.
that
That's
together.
that's a really good question. So, and that's one that I've actually done some studying on because I want to make sure that what we're doing is right, not just based off of my experience, but based off of what we see. So, to preface this, we have a test. It's a real basic test. It's, I think, 25 to 28 questions. It's on our webpage, training.diesellaptops.com. And it's a test your technicians quiz. And basically, if you're kind of curious about where you're at in regards to some basic electrical fundamentals, some basic after treatment fundamentals, some basic sensor diagnostics, real basics level stuff, nothing too heavy. You can take that quiz. It's completely free. And then it'll send you a follow-up email that'll tell you, what you scored and the areas that you need to work on. And so if we go across the samples, the highest amount of samples I've had at one time were a little bit over 6,500. So in theory, we had 6,500 people take the test over the last few years. And the average score was 45%, right? So
Really?
really 45%. Yes. Now
Damn. I'm
that's,
curious. I want to take that.
yeah, absolutely. It's on our webpage. Let me know when you take it and I can pull your scores.
Oh, I'm about to fucking do it. That would be really cool for me to do that live, like
It
not
would.
live, but
Yeah.
on a recording and see how
Yeah. Don't,
smart the Diesel Queen actually
Yeah,
is.
yeah. And
Unless you
then
don't
I've
want me to
also
do
got
that.
a well, we can talk about it.
Okay.
I don't mind you taking it. The problem is if you take it and everybody sees it and you're right, well then they're just going to copy the answers, right? So
True.
that's my only fear, right? But it's pretty
True.
limited, I guess. But we also have an electrical evaluation test that I put together, same concept, roughly 25 to
Mhm.
28 questions that digs into basic electrical theory, how to read a meter, what does your values actually say? Like if you have 1.6 K, what does that actually mean? And so the questions like that, sensor diagnostics, to kind of ping, do they have any idea what a pull up or pull down resistor is inside of a module, a pull up or pull down sensor, how that functions, that kind of thing.
I don't even know that terminology.
Well,
I
it
don't
sounds
know
like
the
you need to,
terminology of pull up and pull down. I
well,
don't know if it's called something else, but I don't, that doesn't ring a bell for me.
and that right there, Melissa, is the problem. Right? The problem is, and let me get on this rant real quick because you got me
Go
on my
for it.
soapbox. So I've got over 40 OEM certifications that I've collected over the 15 years that I was in the field. I was a very highly certified OEM technician. And I'm going to tell you that out of every training that I went to, nobody talked about that. And
Yeah,
for
I've never heard
me,
that.
most haven't, right? And for me, that's a problem because if you understand, if you're doing sensor diagnostics, you've got a sensor failure, you've got an electrical system failure, not necessarily a component failure that sensor is monitoring. Remember,
Mhm.
a sensor is measuring a physical device, a physical pressure, a physical speed, a physical
Yeah.
something, right? So when you do sensor diagnostics, you have to understand, do I have an electrical problem? Do I have a mechanical problem? And
Yep.
if I have an electrical problem, how do I go about troubleshooting that, right? So for an example, if you have a 3-wire sensor, let's just say you've got a standard pressure sensor, we'll say gauge. We got 3 wires, right? On a standard
Mhm.
3-wire pressure sensor. We got our reference voltage, which is typically 5 volts, but I've seen
5.
3,
Yep.
5, 7, 9, and 12, but 5 is the most common. And then you're going to have a ground source, right? Because we got to
Mhm.
complete our circuit. And then we're also going to have a signal wire. And so, on a super high level, without going too deep, basically inside the module, there are resistors that when you unplug the sensor, or if the sensor had an open circuit, or if the sensor failed open, that your signal wire, your ECU, would now have to do something with that wire. In other words, if I were unplugged my sensor and I referenced ground with my multimeter, so I put the black lead on an
Mhm.
on good ground, I took the red lead and I put it on my signal wire that's from the sensor that I just unplugged on the connector side, not the sensor side, and I measured that value there. If the key switch is on, the sensor's powered up essentially, but it's unplugged, I would have 5 volts, I would
5.
have a
Yeah.
ground, and then on that signal, I would either have 0 volts or I would have 5 volts.
Yeah.
Well, that's dependent upon if you have a pull up or pull down resistor, right? So if
Oh,
you
the
have a
0
pull
or
up
the
resistor,
5 is pull
so
up or
zero
pull
is
down.
ground.
Okay.
Yep. So 0 volt would be ground. 5 volt
Yeah.
would be 5 volt, which is tying it to your transistor, which is what's taking that 12 volts, dropping it to 5, which becomes your VREF bank, right? So
Yeah.
there's a
So that's
resistor
just a
inside that
fancy
module.
way of like how the ECU can tell if it's an open or a closed failure
It's not a fancy
in a
way. It's the
way.
simple way.
Yeah.
It's a resistor, right? So we
So
have to
John Deere
understand that.
has that, right? But they called it something. They didn't use that terminology, right?
I
They
don't, I
just
don't know what
dumbed
else
it
to call
down of like this is they didn't really call it anything. Their
it.
training
Okay,
was
that makes
just
sense.
like, this
Do you have
is,
5 volts? Yeah.
yeah, is it how does it because it has a whole I don't remember the exact details, but they have a whole class on like how do you determine when the ECU says there's an open circuit or a short
Yep.
to ground and
Exactly.
that's part of the code, how do you know exactly what that means and why do you know what that means? They don't put it into
Beautiful.
a term, but that makes
They
sense.
should. They
Yeah, they
should put it
should.
into a term, but that's cool because I've been to OEM training for Navistar for multiple engine platforms in Navistar. I was certified and still, I guess, technically am on every Cummins engine built from 2005 until 2020. Literally every one. I've been to, brake courses, Bendix, Meritor. So out of all the courses I've been to, not once did I hear anybody ever say that. And so, for an example, our electrical diagnostics 2 course, it's sensor diagnostics. Electrical 2 is
Hmm.
sensor diagnostics. We probably should just call it sensor diagnostics, but it's more than that. But that's the basic principle. So yeah, we try to cut all the fluff out. We try to cut all the manuals out, all the BS that techs just don't need, and we try to get to the root of what do you need to know to effectively troubleshoot this vehicle quickly, efficiently, and correctly. And that's what we
Hmm.
teach, man.
Well,
So
not everybody has manuals, you know? Not
sure,
everybody has the software that breaks down step-by-step diagnostics for something,
sure.
you know? And if you
But
don't have
that's
a basic
yeah.
understanding of how to check it, you're fucked, you know?
Yep. And so what we try to do is create a pathway where if I just have a fault description, I'm good. I just need to know intake manifold pressure, signal out of range high. Beautiful. I know what to do next. I don't need a manual. I don't need step by step.
Yeah.
Out of range low, perfect. Mechanical system not responding or out of adjustment, perfect. I just need a base idea of what that module sees, and I can go from there. And that's what we try to teach. That flow charts are great. That step by step troubleshooting is great. But if you ever look at step by step troubleshooting and you dig into it, you find out it's always the same freaking thing, right? Especially with sensor diagnostics, because they're saying either the voltage pulls up to 5 or it pulls down to 0. And do you have that on your signal pin? Yes or no? If you do, let's say it's a pull down resistor and you've got ground at your signal pin and it is signal out of range low, well, then that's less than half a volt. That's on our low range. So that makes sense. And then they'll tell you to jump your signal pin to your 5-volt reference. Did the code change? Well, that's because what you're
Yeah.
doing is you're trying to provide 5 volts on that wire as opposed to the 0. Now it's looking for the opposite end of the range and it goes, oh, now your code's out of range high. So the step by step troubleshooting is great, but if you understand how the system works, then you really just don't need it. You need a schematic, you need a
Yeah.
multimeter, and you need a little bit of time.
Yeah. The step by step, like obviously I've been pretty, I lean on that a lot. But it's over the
Sure.
time of as I got better and better, I more under you got to take the step by step with a grain of salt.
Sure.
Because like every manufacturer I've seen, their step by steps do the same thing. Like occasionally you'll get a perfect, beautiful flow of what to check and everything, but there's so many times where I've been like looking at a step by step for a code and it's like check this, remove component, right? And
Yeah.
it's like I gotta remove like 10 hours worth of shit to get to this. I'm not doing that
Yeah.
on the third step, right? We're
Sure.
gonna check all the easy shit first that doesn't need that value from that test. We're gonna test all the easy shit first that we can test that can be their standalone tests, and then we'll move to that, right?
Yeah.
Compression tests, for example, like let's say you have like because injectors nowadays can like they have little weird, I don't know how they fucking do it, but injectors can fucking tell if like your compression is like low, is relatively low, right, to the rest of them, and they have little misfires. Like I don't know actually know how they do it. I just know that like, the electronic injectors have that ability to kind of
Yeah. So
tell what the fuck,
yeah,
but
that's
I
that's
can't tell
crankshaft
you.
velocity generally. Like how much did the crankshaft's
Yeah,
rotation increase or decrease based off of that injection cycle, right? So
yeah.
that's another cool thing about a scope. You talk about relative compression. Like you can do a relative compression with a scope in less than 10 minutes.
Well, a relative compression test is a great starting point, but that's
It's
not,
a fantastic
you
starting
know,
point.
I've seen, people don't, I've seen technicians that don't understand the difference between a mechanical compression test and a relative compression test. And that's where it gets weird because you don't want, a relative compression test is a great place to be like, okay, this is where I'm going to start, right? But it's not an end goal. You can't just be like, the computer says I have a misfire on cylinder one and just throw a fucking injector
Gotcha.
at it. You can't
I'm
do that,
tracking.
you know?
So we don't,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't use so you're referring to software driven relative compression.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
talking about actually current driven relative compression. So like when you use an oscilloscope, you would basically use your amp clamp. You're going to go around positive or negative side of the batteries, either one, but make sure you're getting, the full. If you got two positive cables, make they go into the starter. Make sure you're connecting those. Or if you got one big ground cable, you can go around that. But basically, what you're looking at is when you crank the engine, you're looking to see how much current it takes to actually start cranking, which that's going to be your inrush. And then as you see that inrush spike up, somewhere generally around 900 to 1200 amps of inrush. And then it'll drop down, say a 13-liter diesel will probably run somewhere around 350 to 400 amps of current to get the piston to actually compress to top dead center. You want to make sure the fuel system is disabled for that test because you don't
Hmm.
want the engine to start. But what you look at is you start looking at the waveform and you go, okay, I've got 6 cylinders. So every single time a piston goes up to top dead center, it should draw more current because if it's on the compression stroke, because we are squeezing that air. So it takes more energy to squeeze that air.
Yeah.
So let's say piston one's coming up to top dead center. Well, it'll draw roughly 350, 400 amps of current. And then when the next cylinder comes up into firing order, you should have that same amount of current draw. And you should
Yeah.
see that evenly across all 6. But if you've got a cylinder that has low compression, it'll have less current draw because it doesn't take as much force because you're losing
Yeah.
compression. So yeah, I don't use and I'm not saying you shouldn't or couldn't. I don't use the software relative compression test too much, but we do use scopes for that. It's
Yeah.
super helpful. Yeah.
It's a great
Good
starting
stuff, man.
place,
It is.
because it
For
could be
sure.
a lot of things. There's a lot of things that can cause a cylinder to not perform. But,
Absolutely.
that's what I like people need to understand that like I actually just helped my sister-in-law. Her car was in the dealership and they're like, "Oh, like this it's like a Kia, some fucking piece of crap Kia thing that her
Mm,
her daughter bought or they bought together, I don't know. But they died on the side of the road. It wouldn't stay running. It was like full of like it was just bad. And she took it to a dealership and they're like, "Well, we ran a compression test and 3 out of the 4 cylinders are bad." And I'm like, "Well, did
mm,
you run a relative compression test or did you run a mechanical compression test?" Because those are two very different things. That's not the same. You can't just run a relative compression test and be like, "Oh, well, all the cylinders except for one." Yeah, it obviously is going to say one is good because that's what it uses. It uses the best one and then it compares the rest to that. That's how software does it, right? You can't just say, "Oh, she has 3 bad cylinders. Did you actually test the compression in it?" And like what happened was somewhere she got one of her cylinders was blowing oil by really bad and it clogged her after treatment on that car,
mm.
the catalytic converter, so bad that the engine couldn't breathe. So I told him, I'm like, well, how about we do this? How about because she doesn't trust dealerships, right? Because some people still think that, women are going to get screwed over at shops. So I'm happy to step in just to make sure. And I was talking to the guy. He tried to hire me after that, but I was talking to the
Nice.
guy, the shop owner or whatever, and I'm like, hey, can you take the exhaust off to remove that variable from this? Take the exhaust off and run a mechanical compression test in each cylinder with that off because weird back pressure like that can cause all kinds of weird fucking issues. So can you just do this for me so I feel better about this just to make sure that she does actually have a bad cylinder? And he did that and lo and behold there was only actually one cylinder that was bad compression, like
Nice.
mechanical compression wise. It was bad though. It was bad. Like either
Mm.
she's got like a valve seat that it's left to chat or rings that are completely fucking destroyed, but it's bad. But it's
Gotcha.
things like that that like, I don't know. With John Deere, I was really taught to like, you got to find the root of the problem. You can't just find what the problem is because there's cause and effects, right? Just because you found an effect, you need to figure out what the cause of that is, right? Just because you have an engine failure, why did the engine fail? What was the reason for that? Because if you don't figure out the reason, you're going to end up blowing up another one.
That's
It could be something
100%
as
right.
simple as like the air filter isn't seated right in the housing. I've seen that before. I've seen an air filter. Someone was buying aftermarket air filters for their loader, and they dusted one engine, and warranty covered
Mm,
it because, well, it didn't have very many hours on it. And we slapped another engine in it, and then they dusted another one. And then warranty's
mm.
like, yeah, we don't like. They're like, well, why? So we started digging into it, and it's because the Napa air filters didn't seal correctly in the John Deere housings, and it dusted it.
That's a bummer.
Two 13.5 engines, which are $79,000 a piece for a
Yeah.
complete engine, dusted two of them.
Mm.
But
That's brutal.
right, that's why you got to figure out what the cause is of the fucking failure. You can't get stuck on the failure. You got to figure out what the cause is. The same thing with blowing fuses, right? In the electrical side. Fuses, sometimes they just pop, right? You might get a random fucking surge in there. For the most part, there's a reason that popped. There's a reason. Something happened, whether it's shorted or whatever, something happened for that fuse to pop. There's
Yep.
something wrong. You got to figure out what's wrong with it.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just put a fuse back in it, though, isn't it?
Well, like that's
That's
what most people do.
a bigger
Which
one, right?
I'm not gonna lie, I'll put fuses in there, but if it repops with like if it repops like soon, okay, we gotta start digging into electrical and figure out. I have learned the hard way when I was young mechanic on my own truck why you don't put bigger fuses in things.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
almost burned down my truck. I
It
I had
happens.
a 99 white Dodge Ram 1500. It's called the IOD fuse. It's for like the overhead dome and things like
Mm,
that. Kept
okay.
popping and it was so fucking annoying. So I just clicked a fucking bigger fuse in there and
Yeah.
then clicked a bigger fuse in there because that one popped. And then I was driving to work one day and I'm like, oh my God, it smells like something's burning. Well, the connector that was underneath the seat of that
Mm,
truck started burning and melted a hole in an oil jug that I had underneath the seat
wow.
and was like rolling fucking oil fumes over from underneath
Great
the.
day. Scary. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No, and
embarrassing
that's
to
where,
tell my boss why I was late, right? I had
yeah,
been
sure.
working at John Deere for like 6 months, maybe,
Wow.
maybe. I was so new, and I'm like, I have to tell my boss why I almost burnt my truck down, and that's why I'm going to be late.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, at least you're honest about it,
I found the short. I
Yeah.
found it.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it for sure. But yeah, that's where that old multimeter comes in, right? Check each pin to ground, verify that you don't have any short to ground, and then put your multimeter in the amperage ports and measure current and see how much current it's drawn. I mean, there's a process through that. We teach that too.
So, what's
Good
is your
stuff, man.
guys' main training electrical, or do you guys have a wide range of like engines, transmissions,
That's a great
powertrain,
question.
things
Good
like
question.
that? I know you have
So
after treatment and electrical.
So yeah, here's how all this went down. So when we started this program, basically the original thought was, how do we teach our customers to use the software that we sell? That was kind of the
Yeah.
basic starting point, right? And then once we figured that out and started doing training on software, Tyler basically just said, "Hey man, like, can you guys teach people how to do other stuff?" And we thought, well, yeah, I thought that's why we were here. So let's get it started. So basically, the classes that we started with were the ones that we saw technicians struggle with the most from our view, which was after treatment and electricity, right?
Hmm.
And so we've kind of went down this road of troubleshooting right now. So mostly everything we do right now is really geared towards diagnostics, right? And that's why we teach, electrical one, because in order to troubleshoot effectively, you need to understand electricity on a deep level. And
Yeah.
then we go into electrical testing techniques, which is voltage drop, parasitic loss, that kind of thing. And then we go into electrical two, which is sensor diagnostics. But we also have data bus training. What's a data bus? How does it work? What are
Hmm.
the different types of buses? What types of values do we expect? How do we troubleshoot it? We also do oscilloscope training. After treatment, I don't know if I said that, but we definitely do after treatment still. That's still a very high sought after course. But even though it's 2025, right? But I get why. So basically, we've done some other stuff too, like ABS diagnostics and HVAC and there's just some other stuff. But what we've found is most everybody only wants to come, like our hottest selling stuff is after treatment and electricity. So we've
Hmm.
kind of started focusing on that. It's not that I don't want to, do an engine overhaul class or something like that, but I mean, if we just look at where technicians are as a general rule, and let me ask you this, right? Let me get your opinion before I state what I see. Do you think there are more people in the world right now that work in shops on equipment or trucks or buses or whatever? Do you think more of them are really good at diagnostics and figuring out the root cause, or do you think more people are good at rebuilding and replacing parts?
Oh,
Right? Like
definitely
which one?
repairing.
Right.
But there's
So
so much more to diagnostics than just electrical and after
absolutely
treatment,
there
right?
is.
Like
Sure.
I've met people that don't understand how a basic high common rail fuel system works. How the
Sure.
fuck are you supposed to diagnose a fuel system failure if you don't even know how it works, right?
That's
Like
100%
same thing
accurate.
with
Yeah.
hydraulics. Like hydraulics have the same problem that electrical does because hydraulics is basically the same concept as electrical. It's just fluid instead of electrical current. People really struggle with hydraulic fucking shit
Sure.
too, unless it's obviously fucking leaking. People struggle with understanding all the little check valves, all the little fucking returns, all the little, like,
It's a
the
lot.
difference between open and closed center systems and things like that, that like are, you have to be able to do it right, you know?
Absolutely. Yep. So to answer that, we'll definitely be heading down that path.
I
It's
hope
just
so. I
right
want to be a
now.
part of the hydraulics, please.
Okay, well, right now we are actually redesigning, rebuilding, and getting ready to launch hydraulics in Arlington.
Oh,
So that's going to be the first course we'll launch will be safety and fundamentals. So it'll be things you need to be watching out for because hydraulics
don't
will
undo a
absolutely kill
line
you,
with the bucket in the
right?
air. Yeah,
Exactly,
things
you
like
know.
that.
And then also it's going to be what are the each pieces and parts of a standard hydraulic system? How do they work? Talking about primarily
Hydrostatic versus
pumps.
hydraulic, you
So
know.
we'll do a class on that, and then the following year, the year after, we'll start launching some more diagnostic driven stuff. But what you'll see is we do like what is the basic fundamentals of electricity, electrical one. You need that so we can take you into the diagnostic world, right? And then it's like
Hmm.
hydraulics. We need you to understand the pieces, parts, components, and how they interact with one another, so we can take you into the diagnostic world. So the classes that are what we would consider like more introduction, they're great classes, man. They really are. But they need those. Otherwise, if they don't understand the basic principles, if they come to our sensor diagnostics course, they're going to be cross-eyed and have no idea what we're
Yep.
talking about.
I
So,
mean,
but
OEMs do
eventually,
the same thing, right? They make you have fundamental classes before you go into like the certification classes. So
yeah,
it
that's
makes
interesting
sense.
because
It's that way for a reason,
yeah,
you know.
I actually didn't get any of that. That's what's interesting,
Really?
man. Yeah, so all the Cummins courses I went to, International, Mitsubishi Fuso, I've been to, I've already told you, just dozens of courses. I don't remember one time having a basic electrical class. I don't remember
Really?
one
Maybe
time.
that's just a
No,
Deere thing. I don't know.
it
Maybe that's
might
just their
be, which is good.
equipment's
Like,
different though.
yeah,
Equipment is a different world than semis. So,
sure.
like
Yeah.
I've taken one Cummins class, but that's because John Deere does have the Cummins QSX-15 in some
Yep.
of their tractors, and you have to do a Cummins certification class for that, which is held at Deere. They just have a Cummins guy there with a bunch of Cummins engines. But to be
Gotcha.
able to even be considered for entering a capstone class, you have to, this has changed over the years and evolved, but for the most part, you have to have basic electrical,
Hmm.
you have to have basic hydraulics, so you have to pass both
Sure.
of those classes, and you have to pass the engines certification class. You have to have all of your like online after treatment and everything done first. You have to have all that done before you can even enter a fucking capstone
Good.
training. And then when you enter the capstone training, to even be able to go to the capstone training that you are now eligible to go to, you have to do the basically the online version of that capstone class.
Sure.
And then you get to go to
Yeah.
the capstone, which is half, obviously the test, right? After they train you and they talk about everything and they go over everything, then you have a hands-on class or a hands-on test and a written test and things like that. But
Well, good for
I
them.
I have I don't know anything about the semi world. I do know that I feel like the semi world, everybody gets stuck on the ASE certification things, and I've never heard of any type of training besides, oh, just go get your ASE certification. I feel like maybe the equipment side is lacking more in technicians, so they care more about making sure that the technicians that they do have are trained well. I know John Deere's basically, they don't John Deere, the only thing that John Deere cares about is that when you do warranty work and warranty repairs, as a company as a whole, the reason they put so much time and effort into these trainings is because they want their warranty
Minimize cost.
stuff
Yeah.
diagnosed correctly, because they're
Sure.
paying for you to
Right.
diagnose it. They're paying for you to look at it. And
That's
so
right.
in John Deere, you cannot, as a technician, you are not allowed to diagnose a warranty claim anything unless you are capstone certified in that machine specifically.
Cool. That's good. That's a good thing. You know.
Obviously, it's not a failsafe, but
Sure. Yeah. No, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. That helps them out with me a little bit. I think I got a few things with John Deere that kind of get me riled up,
everybody
but
does. Everybody
yeah.
with their right to repair thing is so mad at
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I
I
get
get it.
it. I work for Hitachi now, so,
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
but
Well,
Hitachi is
awesome.
I feel like they care a lot about, now that they separated from Deere, they really want to make sure that they're, going the right direction.
Good.
They're a great company. Their machines are great. Their
Yeah,
excavators are the reason that John Deere excavators were successful.
gotcha.
Have you ever seen a John Deere excavator or ran one before they were built by Hitachi?
I don't think I've ran any John Deere excavator. My family's I guess I'm not a farmer, but I guess I would be fifth generation farmer. My dad was, and everybody before him. But all the heavy equipment that we run, man, it's old. International M's and K680L backhoes and Ford 8Ns, and terms of equipment, I don't have much experience with it because I was a truck guy. And again, the equipment that we have personally at our place or at the family farm, it's all old stuff, man. There's nothing. John Deere was always kind of pricey, and
Yeah.
so that we always got secondhand old worn out stuff. So
Hmm.
no, to answer your question, the newest piece of heavy equipment that I've run is a family owned piece of equipment, and that's a K680L backhoe. I believe it is a 1993 model,
Oh
so
my
it's a
God.
horse, but it is. I mean, it cranks right up to this day, man. Walk out there and hit the key. You can let the thing sit 3 months. And I've never heard a diesel engine fire up as fast as this thing does, but it's old mechanical Cummins. It's back
Yep.
when Case and Cummins kind of bridged together. So I guess it's technically a Case engine, but Case and Cummins kind of co-developed that engine to the best of my knowledge. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I
No,
haven't
you're
used
good.
any John Deere's.
You're good. But yeah, it's they're excavators. I've worked on them and I've ran them before Hitachi was building them for Deere. And they're clanky. They've got so many things on them that it's just over engineered and works like shit, right? Like
Mm,
it's just fucking horrible. And they're old. It is such a major fucking difference to go from the actual Deere excavators to the ones that Hitachi built for them and then just painted yellow and
interesting.
put a Deere engine in it.
Yeah.
It's a massive fucking difference. And the reason why Deere's excavators are successful is because Hitachi built them.
Mm,
Hitachi
I
is
didn't know that.
Hitachi's, I mean, in my opinion, okay,
Yeah, sure.
I hated their excavators. That I mean, just their load, equipment, I'm sure trucks have something with this, I don't know, but equipment's my world. Equipment, especially hydraulic equipment like excavators where there's no transmission, it's all hydraulically driven,
Hmm.
have an anti-stall or a
Okay.
load sensing thing for the engine to where it kind of its job is to have peak engine performance and peak hydraulic performance without like
Okay.
stalling without cutting into the hydraulic performance just to have engine RPM, but not, you don't have such high hydraulic
Gotcha.
performance and load that you stall the engine, right?
Gotcha.
That's kind of the concept of it. Well, John Deere, I don't even know what the fuck they did, but their anti-stall and load sensing thing, like engine load sensing system for those old excavators is so overly engineered and fucking hard to figure out. It's a giant
Gotcha.
piece of shit. Like it really is. It sucks ass to try to work on. And then
I
Hitachi
bet.
starts building their excavators and it's like if everything is simpler, everything is still pilot. Like as far as I know, part of the reason why Hitachi and John Deere split is because John Deere really wanted all of the fancy like auto shit on there, and
Hmm.
Hitachi would not give that to them. But part of the
Gotcha.
reason those excavators run so well is because they're all pilot instead of electronic over hydraulic or mechanical over hydraulic. They still use pilot, which is super smooth, super nice, and all their pilot systems, like all their load sensing stuff is electrical, hydraulic. So their load sensing, all that shit is electrical. Their valve bodies for not the control valve, but the pilot manifold that they have is like insanely high, like insanely engineered. But it's not
Hmm.
over engineered, right? It's engineered perfectly for that. And I always thought that, I always loved those. I always thought they did
Yeah.
great. They did
That's
great.
cool, man.
But yeah, the overly engineered bullshit that John Deere put on their old excavator was ridiculous. I
I
don't
think
even
that's
know
probably
why I
one
got on
thing.
that side of it, but
No,
yeah.
you're good. It's interesting stuff. That's if I could turn back the time, honestly, and I've kind of spoke to my family about this before and some of my team members, but if I could turn back time, I don't regret going into the truck market. I had a great career, had a great time, met some really good people, and some of them are still friends of mine to this day. But if I go back in time, man, I probably would have left probably about the 7, 8, 9 year mark. And kind of always was interested in equipment. It's just a different breed, but a lot of the
It's fun.
equipment guys I know, one thing that kind of steered me away is a lot of the equipment guys I knew then, man, you want to talk about big old men? I mean, just big shoulders, big muscle. I used to always say, like, if you want to find the toughest techs in the world, go find the field equipment
The
service techs.
field,
Those
yep.
guys freaking working in the sun, the cold. They're working in mud. I mean, the equipment's massive. It's dangerous.
Mhm.
Like that's a whole different breed of human being, man. But I think that's probably what swayed me away from it was, man, those guys are rough around the edges, but tough as nails. But I always just wanted, I've always been really curious about equipment. I just never took that path. And I don't know if
Mhm.
it's, I don't know why, but equipment's always interested me. I enjoy operating it, at least the old raggedy stuff we got. But yeah, cool stuff. I enjoy hearing about it.
I started in the truck side. Obviously, that didn't last very long, but I am so glad. I
I
almost
didn't
got
know that.
forced into the equipment side. I almost got forced into that because I went to
Interesting.
Wyotech, right? And I graduated as advanced diesel, which is semis. So all of the training I had was semis, all of them, all of it.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Um,
Okay.
so then my first job was at an international dealership actually, which is why
Really?
I now understand why everybody hates Ford and their Power Strokes.
Poor
Um,
international, man.
International, they've had a rough go.
They have, and
Their
it's,
old shit was cool,
I was just about to say,
but
man, they were king of the hill for a long time and made an absolute stellar product for a long time. Man, emissions really put a big problem on their back, man.
yeah. Well, the
They've had trouble
choice
recovering
to
from it.
fucking use a Huey fuel system too is just fucking horrible.
Yeah,
But so I started at International and I worked there for like 4 months. And then we got
interesting.
cut hours because we weren't busy. So we kept get cutting like it was me and one other kid because we were the new kids, right? Obviously they're gonna give the work to the mechanics that have been there longer, right? That
Sure.
makes sense to me. I got my hours cut so much I couldn't afford it, and I applied and interviewed at so many truck shops, so many,
Wow.
and the only people that would hire me that was not night shift was John Deere. And the only reason I even applied there was because my ex at the time, I mean he's my ex now, but he was my boyfriend at the time. He worked for Compression Leasing, which was air compressors, and they worked on Honda Equipment's air compressor, and he knew they were hiring, and he knew I was looking for a job. He's like, "You should go in there." I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know anything about equipment. I don't know." And then after about my 10th failed interview, because everybody either wasn't hiring or wanted me to work night shift, which no fucking thank you, or was, "Oh yeah, in 6 months you'll be flat rate." And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
thanks.
that sounds terrible. I was flat rate.
Yeah,
I was a rough
nope,
gig.
I'm good.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I walked into John Deere and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And they hired me without Troy was one of the best bosses I've ever worked for.
That's
He's
awesome.
the one who hired me, and I started in the crane department, and I worked for On Cranes because they also were a dealership for Grove and Manitowoc cranes. So I
Okay.
worked on cranes, like the big fucking RT cranes for a few months, and then they switched me over
Mm.
to Deere. And ever since I started working there, I'm not ever going back to trucks. No thanks. I'm
Yeah,
good. I'm
I
happy
get
with
it.
equipment. It's fun. Everything is different. I don't have to deal with stinky goddamn truck drivers and the stinky fucking piss bottles and the shit down the shifter. Like
Mm.
those horror stories are there for a reason. They're real.
They exist. They're
They
real.
exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not always. That's a let me be fair. That is a very small percentage of truckers, right? I have
Oh, yeah, I'm
met,
not saying they're all like that,
yeah,
but
for sure, for sure. But I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I've seen truck drivers that treat their trucks like it's family, polished, beautiful, clean as a
yeah.
whistle, have full pride in what they do. Like I love those types of drivers because if you kind of flash back to over the road trucking, there was a time, over the road truck drivers were real professionals, and over the years, there's kind of been a change in some of that. There's still a lot of pros out there, man, but you do see a very small percentage of drivers that have very nasty trucks, very unkept. Maintenance is poor, but yeah, I mean it always makes me really happy to see the truckers that are professionals, man, because they're out there and they're moving this country for us, man, keeping us fed
Yeah.
and keeping clothes on our backs. So
Oh yeah, I have full
got the
respect for
Lord for them.
truckers. I just
Yeah,
please don't keep your piss bottles in your truck,
yeah,
please.
yeah.
Like, please. I've seen same thing. I've seen trucks where like they've got the fancy seat covers. They've got
Oh
the
yeah.
fancy things. It was a Lone Star, which says everything you need to know about the person that probably owns that truck. And I mean, literally hardwood floors put in, like had
Wow.
hardwood fucking floors in their goddamn semi, right? And I'm like, I don't even want to touch this thing because I am gonna look at this and I'm gonna get a stain somewhere, right? And then you have the other ones where you open the door and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah,
no
exactly.
thanks. I have only denied and refused to work on one thing in my life, and it was a semi that had piss bottles everywhere and smelled like all kinds of body fluids. It was
Yeah.
fucking gross.
Yeah,
I
some of
couldn't
them.
do, I'm like, no, I'm good. I would rather work on a piece of machinery that hasn't been power washed in 40 years and has been leaking and has mud caked oil fucking everywhere than work on a goddamn semi on its worst day.
Yeah.
I don't mind semis if they're, even if they're just an average semi, I don't mind it. But I'm not doing the piss down the shifter thing and the piss bottle. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. No
Yeah.
thanks. At least people in equipment have the fucking courtesy to get out and take a piss outside. Like,
Well, they have somewhere. That's the difference a lot of times, right? They're out in the woods. So not always,
yeah.
but they got a little spot. Poor truck drivers, man.
I
Sometimes
mean,
they don't
my
have much
dad had a
choice. But
semi. He had a Kenworth.
yeah,
And granted, he wasn't going all over the country.
sure.
He was driving logs because he's a logger.
Gotcha.
He didn't keep that thing perfect, but that thing was always in great condition. He was also a
Yeah.
mechanic though and had to work on it himself, so why the fuck would he do
Yeah,
that to
that
himself?
that
But,
matters.
you
Logging
know,
trucks, that's another tough breed
those
there,
guys
man.
are a whole nother breed, bro.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
guys are
they are.
like, it never fails that if you are going up a mountain pass that's like hard on your own truck and you get passed by a semi doing 90 miles an hour, it is either a log truck driver or a cattle hauler. It's one of
You're
those
probably
two
right.
with a
Yeah.
frickin' 379 Peterbilt or some shit that is turned the fuck up with obviously no governs, right? Doing fucking, I'm like, what are you doing? You are fully loaded, bro.
Yeah. It's wild, man. Different breed of human there.
They always
But
got the pretty
again,
trucks
gotta have
though.
them. Yeah.
They're always cool. They're always cool looking trucks. They're always Peterbilts or Kenworths. Long nose
Yeah,
Pete of some kind. And, they're always cool
yeah,
looking.
that's the logging trucks around us here in South Carolina. They always start out beautiful, right? You're right. They often are long nose, big old fancy trucks. But man, a couple of years, them things get beat all to heck, with the that's a rough gig though, man. Some of them places
Hmm.
they go to load is it makes you wonder how
Oh yeah.
some of these
They
people
got to
even make
back
this
all the
happen,
way
man.
up. Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
It's
Yeah.
insane. My dad has a family friend. Well, I guess I have a family friend that is a log truck driver, and he lives in Colorado, and he keeps, I don't know how he does it because all he does is drive that truck for log shit. He keeps that thing fucking beautiful. I don't know how the fuck he does it. He
He's a
replaces
pro.
chrome shit
Yeah.
on it all the fucking time. Like,
Yep.
I mean, I don't even want to know what his monthly bill is from the goddamn chrome shop. But this thing is gorgeous, and he's now on a second truck, but it is just beautiful, long nose Peterbilt, just gorgeous all the time. Like, how the fuck do you do that?
Very cool.
Cattle trucks, it makes sense, right? Because I mean, yeah, you're in the cow shit and whatever, but like, you're not in the fucking woods. But yeah, it's always some hopped up fucking log truck or hopped up fucking cattle truck that's doing 90 miles an hour up a fucking summit on the interstate. And it's like,
Yeah.
goddamn, bro. Straight piped, right? Obviously, straight piped chrome stacks. I mean, that's kind of like you have to
Every
have
time.
that. You
Standard.
have to have that.
Yeah. Standard
But
loadout for sure.
I would work on those if I could have the choice. I would work on those, but that's
I
not. You don't really get to pick and choose.
I used to work on logging trucks quite a bit, and I'll be honest with you, it was always because we used to test drive all of our vehicles. That's something that we really preached. If you want to be a diagnostic technician, you need to have your CDL. You need to be able to drive what you need to diagnose and verify the
Mm.
repair. And the logging trucks always made me nervous because it never failed. They were missing a mud flap. They had mismatched tires, low tread. Like I just always, I'm just trying to test drive to verify we're good. I take it 5 to 8 miles of circle, always waiting for the DOT man to pull me over and
Oh yeah.
hound me about it. They used to always, wasn't my fan favorite to work on, but that's pretty
At
much the
least
only
they don't
reason.
have piss bottles, and I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe they do, but for the most part,
Uh,
their trips are shorter than most truckers. So I would rather work on a truck that's caked in mud and pine needles and shit like that than work on. I mean, I've worked on a like logging equipment before, and it's kind of a pain in the ass because like they have access panels that are like this big,
Mm,
and it's a metal that's like that fucking thick, and it's like built like a goddamn fucking tank, and you can't
yeah,
get to fucking anything, which is why like everybody thinks you need to be big and burly to work on equipment. Actually, being small is so helpful.
yeah, I can
Like
see
I
that.
would hate to be a
Yeah,
normal size guy and try and work on a lot piece of logging equipment. My dad once
sure,
told me, he's like, if you're gonna work on a skidder, you may as well take off all of the access panels before you even start. You may as well.
gotcha.
And I'm like,
Makes
well,
sense.
yeah, that's I've worked on one or two now. I'm like, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. That makes sense. I
that's pretty
understand why you
cool.
say that, but everybody's always told me like, well, I don't understand how such a small girl works on such a big piece of equipment. And I'm like, the button on the crane is not
I was
hard.
gonna say,
Like,
man, I mean, the same way that the men do it, right? Like all this stuff's
no,
heavy,
not
you
they're
know.
not lifting anything either.
That's my point,
Right.
right? That's the point that I always bring up. Now that you kind of mentioned it, and it's no obvious secret that women are starting to come into our industry, into the diesel industry, equipment, trucks, and all that. And I think it's neat, man. I think it's cool, and I think that there's a misconception that women aren't big enough or strong enough or capable enough, and I think I challenge that and say that I mean when you're dealing with ISX 15 heads. I mean, we use cherry pickers, man. Where when you're dealing with 15 and a half inch clutches,
Yeah.
we're starting to use clutch jacks. And I mean, it's, I don't
Well,
necessarily know
women
that being
aren't
big and
strong
strong
enough.
is,
We're
well,
not.
yeah, but my point is
But
the
we
point I'm making is
are,
most men aren't either, not for that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
Well,
So
what I've always told people is you cannot expect to be a woman and be as strong as the men. You can't. It's not going to happen. We're physically different. But there's a lot of strengths and weaknesses in both genders that can complete each other in a
yeah,
sense. I think one of the
absolutely.
best well-rounded shops would have them big burly, men and the either smaller technicians that are men or females because I've had to have people help me break bolts loose before in a
Sure.
place that I could not fit an impact. But I've also been shoved up an auger tube of a combine because I was small enough to fit up there and hold a motor for
Yeah,
somebody. So they
that's
didn't have
fair.
to disassemble a bunch of shit. It's a trade, right? And that's
Yeah,
what I've always told women is like you don't expect to be you're not going to be an equal. And it's a good thing. You're not going to be equal in every single fucking field and every single fucking thing as a man. They're not going to be equal to you either. You're going to have your strengths and your weaknesses of both parties
sure,
and use that to your advantage.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I
What
mean,
do you think the small guys do?
yeah. Oh, that's my point,
You
right?
know?
That's the point I'm trying to make. Is all this stuff's heavy, man, and we all use machines and tools. But I mean, we've had quite a few women come through training over the years, and man, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, they pick on quick. Yeah, I've been impressed, man. I think
We all have our
I think it's a
strengths
good
and
thing.
weaknesses
Sure.
just like the men do?
Yeah.
Girls like
Yeah.
Missy are fucking rock stars at electrical and harnesses.
Yeah.
I mean, that girl she's got enough attention to detail and enough like shit going on that she's up there with, she might not be as good at the scope specifically as Michael, but she's
Sure.
up there in the understanding of electrical as he is.
Yeah.
She's
No, that's
she's up
good.
there with him, and she's so meticulous about, she can rebuild any harness. Like she literally does that shit for fucking fun on her days off, is
Mm,
rebuilds people's fucking wiring harnesses. Like,
gotcha.
it literally does that. Is that my strength? No, no.
Sure.
I got my other shit, but that's what I've always told people is like, you can't like categorize people into shit. You're not going to be equal as your other technicians in every single field. But that's the whole point of having a shop with multiple technicians is you have different
Yeah.
people with different skill sets. Just because you're
Sure.
a girl doesn't mean you're going to be a rock star at fucking everything. It also doesn't mean you're going to suck at everything. But
That's
I
right.
mean, we're the same as the men. Some of us we have our strengths and weaknesses in different fields and different areas, just like the men do.
Yep.
We're not all rock stars. I'm not a rock star for sure, right? I can do a backhoe transmission in like half the time of book time, but you want to know why? Because I've done it like 400 fucking times. And if
Yeah.
anybody had done it the amount of times that I do it, they can probably achieve the same thing. So I'm
Sure.
not gonna, it's not like I'm a superhuman.
No, I get
I
it.
don't know.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff, man.
But
It's all interesting things. It's curious to see where the industry lands in the next 20 years.
well, I think the training part is a super important thing on it
I think it's
because
very
that's
important.
like I've mentioned earlier, if you don't understand how a system works and how it's supposed to function properly, you're ability to diagnose a failure is going to be drastically hindered.
Absolutely agree.
You'll meet the old technicians where they're like, oh, that's just a certification and blah, blah, blah. It's just books. And it's like, that's great, but you did learn you did learn how this worked. It just took you this many years of trial and error to learn it.
Yeah.
This is just a shortcut of trying to get people to understand how it works. Because yes, there are some people that are super book smart and super theory of operation smart, but don't know how to transfer that
That's absolutely true.
to the
Yep.
shop. But that's better than having no understanding at all. At all. Like I've
Sure.
learned the hard way with my own experiences how much easier it is to diagnose something when you understand how it works first. That
That's
and things
absolutely
like
correct. Yeah.
CAN bus is so fucking hard to wrap your head around with the CAN high, the CAN low. There's like single resistor ones, there's dual resistor fucking circuits with that. But just the simple basics of understanding how the CAN bus system works and what its purpose is for is helpful,
Sure.
right? Because you might not be a super guru at it, but at least you can be like, okay, I understand the basics. I'm gonna go into the diagnostic port and check my voltages on each circuit and see what the fuck they are and see if there's something funky there, because at least that'll give me a starting point. Things like that where, I've seen, how many technicians I've seen that replace entire harnesses for because they didn't diagnose it right and it was a sensor,
Yeah.
or
Tons of
replaced
yeah.
fuses. It was a few. I've seen a kid that he didn't do the simple shit first and he replaced a controller on a Hitachi excavator. And guess what? It wasn't the controller
Yep.
because he understood enough. And this is where better training comes into play, right? He's been through John Deere classes. He had been through all that shit. He
Gotcha.
understood, right? The concept of like, okay, I have to have power coming out of the fucking controller. The controller sends signals to things, blah blah blah. He completely fucking skipped making sure that the controller itself has fucking power. He
Mm,
completely fucking skipped that. And that's where I think that understanding the circuits better and having a better understanding of it and having more confidence in it would, could fix things like that.
sure.
99%. I've heard this from John Deere so many times in every single electrical class they send you to or capstone. They will remind technicians that 90% of the controllers they get as failed
Yeah.
components were not failed.
Yep. We talk about that in electrical too. Yep.
So, like, that's an important fucking thing to understand and learn and know. Like, you got to make sure your component has power first. Just those basics, right? Even if you don't know fucking Ohm's law or you don't fucking understand the exact way, obviously it would be better if you understood how an electrical circuit
Sure.
worked. But if, just like the basics, it surprises me how much of the basics people lack.
That's 100% facts, man, and that's what we're trying to change because you're nailing it. If you don't understand how the system works, if you don't understand the basic principles, and you don't have to like that's the problem is everybody thinks you have to be like super theory heavy. You don't have to be mega theory heavy. You just got to have some, right? Like
Well, you got to be able to read the theory of operation and understand what it's telling you. You don't have
right.
to memorize the theory of operation, but
Sure.
you got to be able to read it and understand what it's telling you.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of people out there right now that can troubleshoot electrical systems and do very well, maybe just as good as anybody that can't sit down and use Ohm's law and write out the formulas, right? Because again, that's a small subset of when you need that as a tech, right? Where there are
I'm
times,
traumatized
but
by
it's
Ohm's
very
law. I'm
limited.
just
Yeah,
traumatized.
most people are, man. But that's why we just kind of this is the relationship, and then that's pretty much where we keep it, man. Because like I said, my opinion, man, probably somewhere around 96 out of 100 times you have to have an electrical problem fixed. You don't need to sit down and use Ohm's law.
Yeah.
It's just not
I mean,
something
same
you
with
need. But
hydraulics. Actually, you use math more in hydraulics than you do in electrical.
I can see
It's for
that.
the basic simple shit, right? Like the differential pressures. So in hydraulic systems, they have like the base pressure of the pump output, and then they have a mathematical equation of basically to for the audience, they have a mathematical equation to figure out the drop in the pressure based on the resistances of all the components it's going through, the hoses, things like that. And the
Gotcha.
differential pressure is what the manufacturer has deemed is the differential pressure between the pump output and what the actual pressure is that the components are getting. And when you understand how the differential pressure works versus pump output, it actually makes the diagnostics a lot easier because you can just look at the monitor and be like, oh, my differential pressure is low. I need to figure out why it's low. And it's not just like, oh, it's low in that sense of like, obviously it's fucking low. But now that you understand the theory of what differential pressure is, then you can be like, okay, why is it low? Where's it low? Where's it coming from? I know why. I know what components go into that math equation for that. So let's check those components and figure it out. And
Yeah.
it works. It makes it a lot, it actually makes it easier.
Sure.
I mean, like I said, hydraulics is just basically
A lot of
electricity
yeah,
with
a lot
fluids.
of similarities there.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of similarities. The difference between flow and pressure is similar, right? To difference between current and amperage, or amperage and voltage, sorry. Like the it's similar. And it's just trying to
There's
like,
some,
and that's another where the theory of operation comes in, and the training comes in, is understanding what the difference is, what the machine is going to act like it when in the difference between having low flow and low pressure. So those are two different things. A
yeah.
machine that's low on flow or low on pressure, they will act differently. But that's where the training comes in, right? That's where, and I think it's helpful. I think everybody should have to go to trainings like that just to get the basic understandings. And then obviously you apply it in the field over the years, and then I think it's better than just trying to wing shit.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, especially when you start talking about high voltage electricity, or you start talking about hydraulics and heavy equipment, like not understanding the basics can get you killed. And
Yeah.
let's just be honest about
Everybody's
that.
seen the video. Remember when Facebook used like first started allowing videos, right? There's this video of quite clearly a foreign country, clearly. And these guys have a excavator boom and bucket all the way up in the air, and they're taking a boom line off. And obviously, like this is what we were taught, right, working on equipment, is if you crack that thing loose
Yeah,
and you can't spin that off with your fingers, and there's pressure behind it, right?
yeah,
Sometimes that can be corrosion, but most of the time that's fucking pressure. So be careful because that shit is such a high pressure, it can get into your skin and poison your blood.
big
Like
time.
it's fucking bad. But these dumbasses have this boom all the way up in the air, right? Obviously, because they probably like, oh, it's going to be easier to get to the boom lines. And they go and crack the boom line, and
Mm,
obviously it's up in the air. So the second that hose comes off, the fucking
boom.
boom
Yep.
crashes to the ground in the air. The fucking, what people don't understand is when it does that, the hydraulic oil vaporizes. It's such a high fucking pressure in this
Yeah.
people's face. Like I would be surprised if they didn't have to be driven immediately to the hospital after this
Well, they
video.
probably did. Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
but
it's
it's things like that that like fuel systems are the same way, right? There's such a high pressure that if you can get injected. It
easily,
can, you
absolutely.
know, it's
With common
so
rail, it's
understanding that
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you think about
hydraulics
common rail
are
getting up to
dangerous.
yeah. I mean, it absolutely is. Common
It's
rail getting
big
up to
equipment.
36 to 40,000. Yeah.
hmm it's big equipment. It's heavy. The safety shit is like there's a reason why, you go to training classes and they
Yeah.
preach,
No, it's
make sure you vent the systems, make sure you run, find if there's a way to relieve all the hydraulic pressure in the system, do that fucking first.
yeah.
Have all your equipment on the ground, or at least like most equipment comes with like support, not excavators, like loaders and shit have like mechanical blocks for
Yeah.
the booms and shit to hold them in the air. Like make sure you're doing all of that shit.
Yeah.
Even make sure, because that shit will fucking kill you or
Yeah.
somebody else in the shop or
Absolutely.
severely injure someone.
Yeah. Very dangerous stuff, man. I
But
agree.
well, is there anything else that you would like to add to the training topic?
Not really. I mean, we've got multiple locations. Check out our website, training.diesellaptops.com. If there's something, anybody that's watching this is interested in, let us know. We'd be glad to get you, rolling through. And
I want everybody to take the test and then put in the comments what you scored and be
there you go.
honest.
That'd be cool.
I
That'd be
would
cool.
love to see the average, because most of my followers are mechanics. I would love to see the average score, especially if you said most
Yeah.
people don't pass it.
Yeah, I mean that's the
I
average
want to
score
take
across
it.
everybody, right? So it's if
Uh-huh.
you just look at the score across all the samples, right? It's
Yeah,
45. But
that
we
is
have people in
fucking
there that hit
insane.
100. It's pretty wild, man, but it's one of those things where I'm not going to it's tough because number 1, I don't know how long any of these people have been techs. I don't ask that question, right? Because for me, it's not really
hmm
relevant how long you've done it. but it is relevant to them, right? If they've been a tech for 6 months, well, they're not going to score as high, right? But for me, it's not relevant because if you're a technician and you've got a 45%, I don't care if you've been a tech for 2 weeks or 10 years, come see us. Let
Yeah.
us help you.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, and to be fair, like there's a lot of, I mean, you can scroll through there and see there's a lot of people that make 100. There's a lot of people that make a 20, I mean, it's just 45 is the average across the sample size, but it's disheartening to see, but it's also, it makes me happy because I know we're trying to do something about that. You just
Well,
have to
that's
take a
your
step in
job
the
is to
office.
fix that, right?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
be a
it's my
tool to fix
passion
that.
too.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that makes us a little different. I mean, you talk to any of the trainers we have on our team, and I'm not going to sit here and give you this spill of, man, if you work a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I love my job and I work every damn day and it's tough. We've
Yep.
got hard days. We have easy days, but I mean,
But
at
it's
the end of the
fulfilling.
day, if you talk to any of the trainers I have, you'll quickly understand how passionate everybody on our team is. I love my team, man.
I would love to be a
Everybody
part of
wants to
it.
make a difference. Yeah. Well,
I would love to train. That's actually something that I've always wanted to do is train. My expertise doesn't really fall underneath what you guys need. Well, I can definitely do after treatment. I would need some refreshers, but I can definitely do after treatment and I can definitely do hydraulics. I can do engines. I can do powertrain. Enough. I don't feel like I'm really the right person to be trying to teach people, right? Especially when you have people like Michael. Like, I'm not really the person for that,
well,
right?
to be fair, I mean, let me just, since we're talking about it, let's just talk about it. I mean, I wouldn't just put anybody in training. We'd have to vet you, right? Like anybody else, right? To see where you're
Yeah.
at and what you know and what you need help with. We don't throw anybody to the wolves, man. We want to make sure everybody's feeling good about teaching and training. And
Oh,
you
I
you
just know
said
my
it
limits.
earlier. Yeah, well, I mean, you said it earlier too. You made the comment that everybody's not equal all the time, right? And what I mean by that is, yeah, you might not be on Mike's level of scope and electricity, but that doesn't mean you don't have very vast and very useful knowledge in a different vein, right? In a different line set. And that's all of our trainers are really that way. All of us have a specialty. We all had something we were really good at, and we had other things that we were decent at, and we have other things that we don't know squat about, But I think the difference, in my opinion, after doing this for as long as we have, what makes a good trainer, there's a few things that make stellar trainers, and being the smartest guy in the room is actually not even the highest thing, right? Like,
Well,
can you
yeah, if you
speak to
can't
people? Can
portray
you
it, yeah.
you can have all the knowledge in the world, and if you can't get it from here translated out of here into their head in a way that makes sense for them, I don't care what you know, right? I don't care if you're
Yeah.
the most brilliant technician in the world. If you can't get what's in your head out of your mouth and into their brain, it doesn't do us much good, right? So there's a lot of layers to becoming a good trainer, and we try to make sure all of our trainers are meeting those goals to make sure
Well,
that
I'm
they're.
glad that you guys have like ex mechanics and shit and ex technicians because like I've had both. So Hanan Equipment did a lot of in-house, what they called in-house training, which is
Yeah,
basically they would send their like old field mechanics that were no longer field mechanics to the John Deere shit to have them train us back, right? Those were fucking awesome. Those
yeah,
were awesome. And I'm
yeah,
not saying that none of the John Deere people were good trainers because I think
sure,
they are trainers. So they are very good at getting information here to here. The problem is most of those are engineers when you
yeah,
go to John Deere. So they are super knowledgeable. For an example, the excavator capstone. The lady that was teaching it, she was super knowledgeable about the hydraulics in the excavator, how the hydraulics work, how everything worked within the hydraulic system, how the control valves worked, how to use the schematics. But if you asked her about a swing motor, she had no idea
yeah,
because she wasn't taught that. That wasn't part
right,
of her curriculum that she was taught to teach. Where you go ask the fucking field mechanic trainer about swing motors and like, "Oh yeah, well this is kind of
right,
what I've seen before."
sure.
So I think that's good that you guys have like taken the people that were mechanics, have the experience. That's super helpful for
It
technicians.
is.
To have somebody that's had experience in the industry and seen fucked up weird shit, not just, well, this is what the engineering people say,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I think that's cool.
It's important. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you wanted to be a trainer, and I'm not going to say with me or not with me and my team. Like, aside from that, if that's something that you want to do, you're a public speaker. You talk to people all the time. You're not difficult to get along with. You've got experience. So I mean, you've already nailed the big ticket stuff, So like, if that's something you really wanted to do, well, you
I mean,
should
I'd rather rebuild engines,
well there,
but
yeah,
and work on equipment. But, I've talked to
yeah,
Tyler before of like possibly being like a guest trainer for Michael on some
gotcha.
things and things like that. I mean, I'd love to do like full hydraulic courses and full courses and shit. I'm not comfortable with doing the electrical.
Yeah,
Like, I can sit in with Michael and be like, oh, yeah, like, this is what I've seen. This is what I've seen
yeah,
on equipment, things like that. But as far as actually like transferring that to here,
yeah, I get
hydraulics,
it.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
After treatment, maybe. Yeah. But
yeah, yeah. Something to talk about,
but
Yeah,
well, it's been a pleasure having you on here.
yeah,
Thanks
same,
for coming on. I know you guys are
absolutely,
busy, but I just wanted to like not only introduce people and remind people that Diesel Laptops does have a training thing that is a very good, like they do more things than just laptops. But I
absolutely.
wanted to get into the training and get into why it's important and get into because I think a lot of people, it's there's it seems to be two extremes in the industry. They're either super hard up for training and super fucking big about it and super fucking anal about everybody being trained and everybody having their certifications and things like that, or they don't fucking care and
Or
they
they don't
don't
do
see a
it at all.
value in it. And they think that hands-on training is the best way, which hands-on training is really good and it's very
It's great.
valuable.
You gotta have it.
It is one of the best ways to learn.
Absolutely.
But if you could skip some of those failures and skip some of those misdiagnoses and skip some of those hard learning curves by learning how the system fucking works, that's just another
Yeah,
tool in your toolbox.
sure.
Is it I think training is a lot like any tool, right? It's
That's
how you
exactly right.
utilize it.
Yep.
Someone can have a toolbox full of snap-on tools and if they don't know how to use them, it's useless. It doesn't
Exactly
matter that
right.
it's snap-on. Training's the
Yep.
same way. It depends on how you utilize it.
And training is the way that I explain that is training is nothing more than a mental toolbox, right? Like when
Yep.
people start replacing parts out of a guess, it's mostly most of the time it's because they're desperate because they don't know what to do, right? So like
Yep. Been
if
there.
you are working, yeah, right. We all have. So if you're working on a
Mhm.
piece of equipment and you need a 1 inch socket, where you go to the toolbox and you get a 1 inch socket. And then if you need a 3/4 socket, you go get a 3/4 socket. And you just grab the tools you need as you need them to get the job done, right? And the problem is what training provides, and as well as experience, but that provides a mental toolbox. So now if I have to do a test mentally, I go to my mental toolbox and I pull out my voltage drop test, right? And I perform
Mhm.
that. And the more tools that you have mentally, the less chance you're going to make bad decisions because you have the tool you need. You just have to go to the drawer, open it up, and access it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't invest in their tools, but like the difference between training and having a mental toolbox versus having a physical is, the elusive 10 millimeter socket, right? When you lose that, it's gone and you got to go find another one and here you go. But
Mhm.
when it's a mental toolbox and you use it, it's yours. You own it. It's yours forever. So if you're willing to spend, gosh, I can't even imagine what toolboxes are now, but,
I don't
25
buy new
grand.
toolboxes.
I mean,
None
who
of
can
my
afford them
toolboxes
things
are
now,
new.
Yeah.
The
But
only
let's say
reason
you
I
buy
have
a
a
top of the
snap-on
line.
triple bank box is because it was used
Yeah,
off
same.
another tool truck, so it was cheap.
I bought my box used too. But I mean, guys are willing to invest 20 grand into a toolbox, another
Mhm.
50 grand into tools, another 5 grand on a PC and a comm device and all that, but you're not willing to spend 2 grand on your mental toolbox. I mean, that
Yep.
that just never made much sense to me. So if they have access to it, they should utilize it. And I know it's time to wrap up, but I'll say this is uh, I don't believe that I'm the kind of guy that needs a basic electrical class, but if somebody asked me to come to one, I would
Mhm.
because maybe they look at something differently than me. Maybe they explain something differently than I do. Maybe they have better techniques. So even the point I'm making is even if you know the content, you might learn something, and if you go to a training and you walk away with one thing of value, then it was worth it.
So my second capstone I ever did, third maybe, was a motor grader capstone for John Deere. And I was like maybe a year into my career at this point. I had touched like three of them, like maybe, right? And it was basic, servicing and things like that. It wasn't anything really extreme. And I scored the highest in that class out of
Nice.
everybody. And there was an old guy in that class that had the attitude of, I don't know why I have to be here. I'm too good for this. I know everything there is to know about graders. I don't really need to be here. This is a waste of my fucking time. And
The
he almost
vacationers.
failed. He almost fucking failed. So somebody with way less experience and way less fucking knowledge did better. Keep in mind, this isn't just a written test. This is a hands-on test too. This is hands-on, and he almost failed because he missed some of those. It's not like he tanked the written and was awesome at the hands-on. He tanked the whole thing.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is if you go in, the people that, it doesn't matter how much experience you have, the people that go into the trainings with the, like me, where I don't know what I'm doing, I really need to pay attention because I have no fucking idea.
It's the
Those are the
best
people
way.
that do better and they get more out of it than the people that like, I don't even know why I need to fucking be here.
Absolutely.
I'm too good for this. And it's like, but you're not. Worst case, you don't have to be in the fucking hot shop right now. And worst case, you get to test your skills out and test your knowledge out and
Yep.
possibly learn how, like, more in-depth things than you already know, or a better, like you said, a better explanation. Like, that's the worst thing that could happen. Like,
I'm
come on,
telling you,
bro.
man.
I
It's
hate
great.
those egotistical motherfuckers. Not to fucking get on a rant because I know you're like
No, I get it.
probably need to go, but that's the worst mechanics I've ever met think they're the best mechanics in the world. And the best mechanics I've met call themselves idiots all the time and
Yeah.
admit to their fuck ups and shit
Well,
like that.
it's like I
You
said
know,
earlier.
humble mechanics are the best mechanics I've met.
I agree with you. It's like I said earlier. The first step to being the best at electrical in the shop is understanding you're not the best in electrical at the shop. That's the first
Yep.
step, right? You have to have a realistic evaluation of yourself, because
Well, if you
if you
think you're
don't,
the best, you're not going to grow.
nobody's going to teach you anything because you
So,
don't want to learn it. You
yeah,
know
no,
exactly
I've
right.
worked with people like that. I worked with a guy that thought he was just the greatest fucking thing on the planet, and he was just super good at fucking everything, specifically electrical. He thought he was like God's gift to the fucking world on it. And I watched this guy on a backhoe replace every single goddamn component on that thing, basically, right? Because he's like, oh, he just sent the quote, his first quote to the customer was every single fucking sensor
Mm,
and every single fucking wiring harness. Oh,
parts
well,
can.
and like all right, all these fucking excuses as to why you fucking need that. And it's like, then he's like, well, it fixed it. And I'm like, well, no fucking duh, you fixed it. You replaced every single
With
harness and
everything
sensor
on it.
on the
Yeah.
fucking machine. You replaced everything but the controllers.
Yeah.
No
That's
fucking
right.
shit. He's actually the same technician that helped the younger technician diagnose the controller in that excavator when it was a fucking fuse.
And see,
Same
that's
technician. It's like,
I'm glad you said that, because you were talking about hands-on training earlier, and that right there is one of the problems. And to be fair, you can have that problem going to training. You can go to some. I mean, there's some pretty crappy training in the world, and I'm not talking about diesel specifically. I'm just talking about in general, right? There's some trainings that are not that great, and there's trainings that are amazing, and there's a lot of trainings that are kind of somewhere in the middle. The problem is when you're doing on-the-job training, which is valuable, very valuable. You learn a heap when you're in it, and it's when you're in the belly of the beast, you learn a lot. I'm not taking that away at all.
especially when you fuck up.
Exactly. That's ups are a huge. That's You're right. That is making mistakes is a huge teacher, or it should be. But the problem with the hands-on training is you're at the mercy of the guy teaching you, who everybody assumes is the best, but is he really the best? And maybe he is the
Yep.
best at that shop, but how does he stack up in the scheme of things, right? A lot of times you might find out that, well, what we're doing hands-on training with the lead tech, but the lead tech might be given bad advice, or their own version of a repair path, which isn't the best route. And again, I'm not saying that training's any different than that. I'm just saying that's a risk you run if you only have one avenue. If the only
Hmm.
avenue you ever have is, Tech Jeff, who's their top tech at that shop, if that's the only training you ever get, you're only going to get what he has to say. And that's why I tell people all the time when they come to our training, hey, you came to electrical class, beautiful. If you ever get an opportunity to go to another one somewhere else, take it. Take every
Hmm.
class you can get and gather all the information you can and rock and roll, man.
Well, everybody has a different way of thinking and a
You
different
get my
way of
point?
doing things.
Exactly.
And how I was trained, because I was blessed with very good trainers
Good.
in the like hands-on, right? Every shop I've worked at has had at least one or two guys that are fucking incredible. But the best trainers that ever trained me were very big about, just because I tell you how to do something doesn't mean that's the only way of doing it.
Right.
And if you find an easier way of doing it, let me know,
Let me know.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's
100%.
The
Yeah.
worst people that I've ever worked with that were the worst trainers were, well, you have to do it my way
Right.
or the highway, right? Like, if you
Yep.
do it any other way, then you're wrong. And like I said, the best trainers are like, well, if you find an easier way of doing it or something that works better for you, as long as you achieve the same end goal, that's fine. Like, try it
Yeah.
out, go for it. Let me fucking know. When you
Oh,
fail
yeah.
and you fuck up and I was right, I'm going to give you shit for it because this is
Yeah.
a shop and that's how we work.
Exactly.
But like, they were more than willing to let me try and do whatever. And sometimes it worked.
Sure.
I've had pips and product improvement. I've had a product improvement that I did for John Deere that I was cutting the guy's times in half
Wow.
for this pip. And it's John Deere. It's the same thing as every company warranty, right? They try to screw you on the time it takes to do it. And I was
Yeah.
cutting John Deere's time in half. So
Wow.
much so that it was getting to a point where Deere was like, I don't know why we're paying your other technicians 8 hours when it's
Mm.
taking her 3.5, right? Like, I
Right.
don't get it. Like, we're not going to do that. Well, the only reason I could make that time was because I was tiny and I could reach my arm back into a fucking that one of the hydrostatic pumps to replace a fitting on there to take one of the plugs out and put a fitting in there that they were removing the whole fucking
Mm.
cooler for,
Gotcha.
you know?
Makes sense.
But
Yeah.
have I been right every time? No.
No.
There's been plenty of
No.
times where I'm like, I'm certain I'm correct, and I am certain if I do it my way, it's going to be better, and it's fucking not.
Yeah, I've paid the piper on that a few times myself, for
Yep.
sure.
I fucked up a backhoe transmission pump. That was my very first backhoe transmission I ever fucking did. I was already way over on time. Way over. Because this was my very first big job I was ever given. And I had to take it out and I had to split it in half and I had to replace one of the clutch packs because it was a pip kind of thing. Well, it was a pip back in the day, but now it's just like we know those fail, so we replace them. And I did that and I did all of it. And I was so proud of myself because I split this fucking transmission, which has these itty bitty sealing rings everywhere, right? Like, it's fucking hard to get
Yeah.
that back together, right? It is fucking
Sure.
hard.
Yeah.
And I got it back together and I got it in and I had the torque converter in there, right? And I was bolting up the transmission bell housing to the engine bell housing. And there was like this much space. And I'm like, I'll just draw it up.
Yep.
I'll just suck it in with the bolts. It'll be fine.
Yep.
Even though the book specifically says not to do that. I'm like, it'll be
Mm.
fine. It'll be fine. I know what I'm doing. It's fine. It'll be fine. Well, I
Did you use
heard
a
this
wrench or an
pop.
impact or what'd you use? Yeah.
I
What's
just
the?
used a wrench,
Okay.
but
I was
I
gonna
heard,
say that's a cool choice.
so I used a wrench or a ratchet and I was like real careful with it, right? I'll do this bolt, then I'll do this bolt, then I'll do this bolt. I was trying to be careful and I heard a pop and I'm like, oh, it's just probably that lip, right? It's probably just a lip. It'll be fine. And then I go and
Mm.
start it and it has no hydraulic pressure. And I'm like,
Mm.
fuck,
It's the worst
fuck,
feeling, isn't
fuck,
it?
fuck, 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 fuck. Well, turns out, because the hydraulic pump is bolted to the back of the transmission, it turns out that I didn't have the torque converter splined all the way on, and it broke
Mm.
the ears of the transmission pump. So guess what I got to fucking do? I got to take the
Mm.
transmission all the fuck the way back out
Yep.
and
Tear it
to
all the
rip
way
it
back
all the
down.
way back apart
Yep.
to take the fucking pump out and replace the fucking pump. I made time on it
What
the
a
second
bummer.
time I did it. I cut my fucking install and remove time in half.
Great day.
But I never did that fucking again. But I was
We've
sure
all
about
been
it,
there.
right? I'm like, it'll be fine. It'll be fucking fine. It
Yeah.
was not fucking fine. I was banned from doing big jobs for like 2 months after that.
Yeah, you got the punishment. I get it. Yeah. It happens. It happens to the best of them, man.
And that's how you learn. I've never done it again though. I've done
That's it.
tons of backhoe transmissions now that I can have out and apart or out and in. Like a special, especially just R&R is like I can have that shit done so fucking fast
That's
with
awesome.
no problems. But I
So let
fucked
me
it up
ask
a
you
bunch of
this.
times.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying I just fucked it up. And that's
Oh,
part
I
of the
got you.
reason.
Well, let me ask you this: what keeps you from going back to the field some? I mean, you made a couple mentions that you kind of miss it, and you enjoy doing engines and stuff. Like, is there any chance in the future you'll go back to it, or kind of
I'm
where's?
actually currently working on going back part-time right now.
Okay,
But I really want to have my own shop with my own engine
gotcha.
shop and shit. But like where I'm at right now, I don't want to like disclose my location. I don't care
Sure.
if you care. I don't care if you know, but I don't want
Yeah,
my audience to
I
know where I
totally get
live.
it. Yeah, you're good.
There's only one construction dealership in this area for like any
Gotcha.
equipment, and it's John Deere. There's no other construction equipment dealerships in this area for like 60 miles. Like it's ridiculous.
Gotcha.
The closest one is
Makes it
Caterpillar,
tough.
which is really fucking far. So, and they, the owner is a girl that I have had contact with when I first moved here, and she is not a fan of me because of my social
Oh, okay.
media. And I tried
Gotcha.
to explain to her, like, when I first tried to get hired on there at her other location, I'm like, look, you got to understand, like, you see that I film stuff in the shop, and I get that you don't like that, but you need to understand that was approved by my boss. I was doing it after hours. This was not something I was sneaking, and if you don't want me to do it, that's fine. I think it's a little bit extreme to say I can't take a picture of a fucking engine and post it to
Yeah.
Instagram. That's a bit fucking extreme. Like, are you regulating the
Yeah.
men that way? Probably not. But like, I'm not, if you don't want me filming videos and shit, that's fine. Like, you got to understand that this was approved by my employer because I was
Sure.
coming in after hours and doing that, or I was doing it on my break. Like, people got to
Gotcha.
understand that. I don't believe in
Sure.
doing that shit on the clock. If it
Well, that's,
takes you
yeah.
more than, and I tell girls because girls are the worst about this, if it takes you more than like 15 seconds to set up a camera or do whatever you're doing as a video, don't fucking do it
Gotcha.
unless you're off the clock, right? It's one thing if you set
Sure.
up a camera and you just let it roll and then you work, but I've seen girls go live while they're
Yeah.
working on things and things like that. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? That is a customer's time. They should not be paying
Right.
for you to reply back to fucking Billy Bob Joe in your comments on a live TikTok,
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's
you
fair.
know? Or you shouldn't,
Being
if you are
professional is important.
spending like, I have like a whole video that I took of doing a hydraulic cylinder rebuild, and half of that was on the clock because my boss told me I needed to do it on the clock. But it was just I set the camera and I removed it. And then when I did the talking points of how I do the seals, how I lay them out, how I make sure they're right, how I install them, how I do the piston and shrink the piston back down, the piston seal, I did that off the clock. I came in early to do that.
Gotcha.
So, but that's what people need to understand. Like, just as a
Yeah.
disclaimer for everybody, I have a few
Yeah.
people that shit talk that. That was approved and it was after hours. Almost every fucking video I did was either approved and they knew I was doing it and they didn't fucking care and they would bill the customer accordingly, or it was after hours or during lunch when they're already not
Gotcha.
billing, you know?
Yeah.
You need to fucking
Yeah. No, that
disclose
makes
that to
sense.
people. I don't believe in cutting into customers. If the dealership wants to pay for it, it's fine. But I don't believe in making customers pay for my fucking filming for social media or
Yeah.
even their
No,
filming
yeah, I
for
get it.
social media.
Sure.
Keep
Yeah,
it
no, that's
professional.
an internal expense. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Being a professional matters, man. That's
yeah.
something I talk about a lot with our industry, man, is professionalism, like our industry has, and when I say I'm going to blanket the diesel industry as a whole, right? Equipment, cranes, trucks, all that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, technicians don't have the best reputation, right? In terms of trust and reliability and professionalism. And I think it's important we're all techs. We like to have fun. We like to talk trash. We like to get riled up, right? But I recently went to a shop. I won't name the name of the shop or the area or anything. Full. We're gonna protect them. But man, I walked into the customer's booth, and one of the techs is walking through the door to go to the service desk, and I'm at the customer service desk. Man, they're cussing at each other. I mean, screaming at each other. I mean, I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I'm like, man, like technicians do all that. I get it. They like to have fun. We've all been there. But like, bro, don't bring that into the shop office where customers are getting ready to open up their wallet and spend 10 grand on this repair. Like, keep that stuff outside. Be
Yeah.
more professional, And I think that's something that our industry really lacks. And I really hate that because there's some really killer technicians out there that really give a crap about what they're doing. And I think being professional matters. And I
Oh,
think
I
that what you
agree.
just said is a big piece of that, which is, hey man, if somebody's paying you to fix this machine and they're paying you, I mean, what are labor rates now? I mean, 200, 215,
$35 an
230,
hour
like,
for
yeah,
the
I mean,
shop base rate. That
you
is
get what I'm
not
saying?
including overtime. That's not
Right.
including field work. That's not including the specialty. Like John Deere separated their rates for working and Manitowoc were higher than Deere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So,
and that was
I mean,
3 years ago, by the way. So I have no idea what it is now.
that's what I'm saying. And so when somebody's spending that kind of money, come on, man. Like, I'm not saying you got to roll out the red carpet and, serve them hors d'oeuvres, but like make them feel good about what you're doing, about who's
Mhm.
working on your machine. Like have some authority, have some presence, have some confidence, but have some professionalism,
You know
man.
what I would love to start teaching technicians where that I know for a fact they fucking lack in? is
What's that?
fucking write-ups.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not,
That's
you cannot submit a bill to a fucking, I mean, warranty is a whole nother animal, but even to a customer, you cannot submit a $1,000 bill and have the write-up say remove and replace engine.
yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
You can't fucking have that. You
No.
can't do that shit. Explain to them why they're spending, especially if you have to go over your quoted time. Explain why
Sure.
the fuck it's worth that they have to fucking spend an extra $1,000 with you.
Yeah.
Explain that
I
shit
agree.
in your goddamn official write-up. It's not
I agree.
fucking hard. You don't even have to fucking be like, I liked writing. So my write-up, I actually had an employer print out one of my write-ups one time and hang it on the wall, and then send it to everybody as a fucking like example. But it doesn't even have to be that hard. You don't have to fucking sit there and babysit your write-up every fucking day. But what you
Right.
do have to do, it's so easy, dude. If you're on a big job, take the goddamn repair, goddamn fucking instructions that are usually bulletin points and copy and paste it into your fucking write-up. And then
Yeah.
change shit wherever you fucking did something differently. Or add in,
Yeah.
okay, broken bolt, this is a procedure I did to remove the bolt, whatever, right? It's not fucking hard because when they see it's so simple when a customer spends $30,000 for you to replace an engine or more usually, and they see, okay, the part was alone like, this much, and then labor was this much, instead of just saying, oh, labor 20 grand, they're like, why the fuck did I spend 20 grand on labor? But they have a fucking novel, right? That
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense why the bill is 20 grand
Yeah.
of labor, right? Like, I would love to
Yeah.
fucking incorporate that and to teach people how to do fucking write-ups and teach people the importance of it because it's not just for warranty. Like most people are like, oh,
Sure.
if it's, yeah, even people like don't care about warranty either. And it's like you should care about that shit and do your
Yeah. People
write-ups
want to know where
right.
the money's going, man.
Yeah, keep track of your time, keep track of what you do. That's something that I see that technicians lack in a lot, is they really lack in
Sure.
write-ups. And then their
I
bosses are
agree.
constantly fucking fighting them about it because they won't fucking do it. They think it's stupid.
Yeah.
They think the service writer should just do it for them. And it's like, that's
Well, they got to do their
great.
job. Yeah.
If it's like a service, the service writer could probably do that for you. But the service writer isn't the one out here doing the work. They don't know what you're running into. They don't know how long it
Right.
takes you to do every single little fucking thing. When I do a warranty write-up, I time myself in each goddamn fucking thing that I'm shaking my camera. When I do a warranty write-up, I time every fucking thing I do. So, like, if I'm doing a fucking clean out on a skid steer, which is basically the pump failed, it's trashed every single component in the system. Every component I remove, I time and I write that in the fucking write-up with it. And I time
Hmm.
every single motherfucking thing. And guess what? Almost every single motherfucking, even when I don't do that and I just write down every single thing I do, 90% of the time I get paid for all of the time that I put in that warranty
Sure.
job. Well, I don't, the dealership does, but like for the most part, my time is almost completely paid for because of my write up.
Sure.
It's not because I'm a better technician. It's not because I did it
Right.
faster. Usually I don't do it faster. Usually I do it fucking slower, but I
No,
get
yeah. I
paid
mean, I
for it.
get it. You're right. The write up's important, man. 100%.
But that's my
Well,
last
cool.
fucking spiel for the day is write ups. Do your
There you
fucking
go.
write ups, guys.
Get your write ups
Don't
done,
let
y'all.
me
Get
be
your
a
write ups
service
done.
manager. I'll post a sign on the back that says do your fucking write ups. But yeah,
Well,
that's
cool,
another part of
man.
professionalism though. The
It
write
is,
ups and
man.
the
I think being
care,
professional
the give a
matters.
shit.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you for coming
Yeah.
on. And,
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks
this
for
was
having me.
another one that was supposed to be like 30 minutes and we're like 2 hours, which is every goddamn one
Yeah,
I've
we
ever
missed
done
that one.
ever. But that's fine. Thanks for coming on and I appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to go take that fucking test and
Okay.
I'll let you know what I get.
Sounds good, man.
Send
Yeah.
me the
I'll be
link
on the
for
lookout
it.
for it. Okay. I can do that. Sure.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you for listening to the podcast and see you guys next time.
Catch you later.